course, as soon as it died, I took it, to the trash can. So,
Right.
And I think we told you, Kate, that I don't know what I told you, but whether we told you it died or not. She also picked up a little kitten that they had to put down one time. Remember that one?
Yes, I do, Dad. That was a good time.
Welcome back to another edition of Zero Blog 30. Today, we have 5 rounds in the magazine. Round number 1, pilots are finding out that they can't just do whatever the hell they want, and it's absolutely delicious. Round number 2, orgies, cocaine, and wild parties. We're not talking about Kate's time at IUPUI or whatever the fuck it was called.
You could, but no, not the same.
Nothing about rugby at all. But there's a major OPSEC violation that gives the Washington politicians a little bit of a shocker, to include people from your own party actually rebuking their own member, which is the first time that I've heard that happen in quite some time. Round number 3, Mexico is going to rent out their presidential jet for parties. If you could throw a fucking rager on any government installation with any military equipment, what would it look like? And why is it just the puppy program on Lackland Air Force Base with 100 little Malinois crawling all over you and giving you sweet little kisses?
Great
Round
answer.
number 4, a flamingo that's been AWOL from a Kansas zoo for 17 years has been spotted. So that actually wouldn't be AWOL, be classified as a deserter. Like we have a little bit of desertion going on from the flamingo.
Pardon me.
Yeah, stolen valor. Katie strikes again. Round number 5, don't split yet. We've got the oh my god.
Oh wow.
I wrote
My
this one and then
goodness.
Kate changed it right under my nose, and I'm Ron Burgundy. I am Ron Burgundy. For the
You're very
rounds
much Ron
portion,
Burgundy.
I have 1,000 there. I was talking to one of the listeners who was DMing me on Instagram, and he's like, it's always so funny when Kate prepares something that you don't know anything about. I'm like, sometimes I'll write the sheet and Kate will go in and change the rounds.
I always do.
You love you know, like there's meme formats, like now the big one is Will Smith smacking Chris Rock. Your favorite verbal meme might be lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my. I can't even how many times.
Yeah. Orgies, cocaine, and wild parties. Oh
Yeah.
my. Yeah.
Some things is definitely
Russia,
oh my happening.
Belarus, and whatever. Oh my. Yeah, I'm always adding that one. You're right. I'm sorry.
But this one, we not only have lions and tigers and bears, but we have lions and tigers and bananas. Oh my. We're going to talk to Johnny Bananas about his trip over to Ukraine, where he was working with some humanitarian groups there. This interesting conversation. And all of that is going to be brought to you by our good friends at Whistle Pig. If you haven't tried the Whistle Pig yet, Kate, what's your favorite? Which one is your favorite?
Blackberry lemon fizz, my friends.
Cons?
It's the best.
The same. The blackberry. I'm a big blackberry fan.
Everybody loves the blackberry one.
It's so. I mean, the other ones are good, but this one is.
I'm drinking no free ads, but I'm drinking a seltzer right now that's black cherry. I just like all those black flavors. Black
after
cherry,
6
blackberry.
p.m. he switches to the Whistle Pig version.
Correct.
Yes, it's a treat.
I too love them. If you want to get them, go to cans.whistlepig.com with the promo code ZBT2022, and you're going to get a discount there. It's fantastic. It's the best seltzer on the business. Like right now, I have first of all, it's huge pollen season. So for the first time in a while, I'm back in on banana induced pink eye.
Banana induced pink
no.
eye. His eyes get super gross. It's the most disgusting thing.
And it
But I
didn't
do
do
like
it
when he
all
goes and gets
last
them
year.
popped.
I don't know what happened this right now, but I think it's because my oak trees are slam full of pollen and it's just coming all over the place. So I think my allergies are out of control. But that being said, it has been over 85 degrees here in San Antonio for like a week and a half straight.
Hell
So
yeah.
we're getting close to pool season, and I cannot wait to have these Whistle Pigs while I
Whistle
am
Pig
chilling.
on ice, buddy. That's my go-to.
Cannot wait in the old pool, sitting around, hanging out in the hot tub's gonna be great. Go pick it up from your local liquor store or wherever you gotta get it, or you can just order it. Cans.whistlepig.com. Promo code ZBT22.
It's been a minute since I've lived in Texas, and I can't recall, when do people start really hitting pools every weekend, and that becomes part of the social activities? Is it April?
Yeah, April, really. I mean, my pool right now is 73 degrees. So I think it is swimmable, but I'd prefer it to get above like 76, 77.
Sure.
Do you feel
I get it.
embarrassed because Stu Finer's pool in New York is warmer than yours?
It's the richest thing. That is the most luxury thing I think I know of anyone doing. Like
he keeps his pool at, I think it's 88 degrees.
88 degrees.
And it's been in the 20s here this week, and he still did it anyway.
And he
It's
started it
insane.
like a week ago. As he started, and it's still taking his pool this long to heat up, so nonstop. His gas bill has got to be $3,000 at least.
Yeah,
because
for
I
sure.
did it. I did it for a week and a half, keeping my pool at only I think it was 78 or 79 degrees. And I did it for like a week and a half when I first moved in last year. And it never gets in like the 20s except for last year, but that's not for a long time. It was shocking to me. My bill was like $500 for that little bit of time. His is going to be absolutely insane.
Major.
My
Crazy.
parents have a heater for their pool, and I agree with this, but they refuse to turn it on. They're like, what's the point of having a pool if it's warm and not refreshing? So
I'll
can't
only do
imagine-
it to give it the little kickstart. This weekend, where it's sitting at like 72, I'll give it the kickstart to get it up to 78, and then it'll fluctuate probably back down to like 76, and that's where it'll stay. And then other than that, it'll have to go. So just that little
That's nice.
pump up.
Very nice.
It is very nice. What else is nice is that we are able to talk to Joe Mannion. That's Kate's dad. He came on because last week we had an incident. And here's Joe. We're going to talk to him about it. All right. So before we get going with the actual show today, we had last time, if you listened on to Monday's episode, Kate told a horrific story about her father involving a squirrel that Kate was absolutely in the dumps about for about a week. So reached out to Joe, her dad, during the show. He was occupied doing things. He reached back out and I said, I don't want to hear it. We got to have you on the show to clarify. So Joe, the floor is yours. What actually happened with this squirrel situation?
Okay, well, first of all, we made many trips to the vets with animals that Katie found injured or whatever. But this time she was coming up the street with 3 of the girls, and they had a hat with a little squirrel in it. And this squirrel was in bad shape. Dad was not standing around drinking beer with the fellas. I was actually working in the yard. So they come up, and Katie, of course, is freaking out because she was wonderful with animals. So she's freaking out. Take one look at this squirrel. This thing, I don't even know how it was still breathing. It was bad shape. So we basically put it in the garage in a box, put a little towel over it, and told her that we would take it to the vets the next day. Of course, as soon as it died, I took it, to the trash can. So,
right.
And I think we told you, Kate, that I don't know what I told you, but whether we told you it died or not. She also picked up a little kitten that they had to put down one time. Remember that one?
Yes, I do, Dad. That was a good time. Thank
But
you.
listen, your father and the neighbors did not stand around. Now, we did stand around one day. Here's what Katie got confused. By the way, she did not run that squirrel over with a bike.
Because can I say, no, it had already been hit. And then we were riding our bikes downhill. The way I remember it, we re-ran this squirrel over, which is how we found it by accident with our bike tires. So I checked with several neighborhood girls, and almost verbatim, they said to me, yes, they remember the squirrel being put in a plastic bag and tied to the tailpipe so you guys could gas it.
Here's where you went wrong.
We all remember
you got
this.
conflated. We do other things when we're drinking. Mr. D, Mr. W, and myself were having a few beers, and he had a groundhog under his shed he couldn't get rid of. So we came up with the great idea of putting an extender on his tailpipe of his truck. We backed it up to the shed. We had it run for about an hour and a half.
Oh my goodness.
Did it work?
This is even worse.
Killed the groundhog, almost burned down the shed, but it was all right.
No, that's what they would do. Even if you're at a farm, they'll like come in and they'll put like little gases into their hole and then light it, and it smokes them out of there because they're invasive.
What?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But the last thing I'll say is your mother and I are always amazed by your memory. At least you don't tell fibs. You just say, I don't think I remember this right, but
Now we need to get to the bottom of another story while we have you. What I need to know, why are we doing Christmas in September? What's that about?
What's that about?
Oh my God. Oh, don't even get me started on that. That is her mother. And the kids, they would badger Jill, and Jill would say she couldn't help herself. She'd be like, okay, I got to tell you what I got you. It would drive me nuts because we were a Christmas morning family. So this time we went up to New York, and Rutherford brought up all of her gifts for little Cassius. I'm allowed to say his name. I don't know.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's fine.
So anyway, I think Pat was a little dumbfounded as well as they're opening all the Christmas gifts on September. I don't know. I gave up. I just give up at that point. It doesn't make any difference.
Smart man. Well, Joe,
The
thank you
ladies
for
do the
coming
best.
on and clarifying the record. Kate,
Thanks,
was that
Dad.
right? Yeah, he was right.
I guess he's right. Now that he says putting it in the box in the garage, I do remember that. And I do remember him taking me to the vet, but the vet was closed. So that's why we brought it back. And then but the neighborhood girls and I remember it very differently.
Because I can't imagine, Joe, Kate was the kind to just mention it once and let it go. I imagine she was the type of kid that there's a squirrel that's hurt and we really got to help it, Dad.
Oh,
I just said-
that's exactly her.
This is me
I love
texting
her
one of
for
the
that.
neighborhood girls.
Mhm.
I said, "Do you remember blah, blah, blah?" And she said, "Oh, yeah." And then one of our dads tied it to the exhaust pipe and drove it around the neighborhood to die. She said, "For whatever reason, I think about it often." I said,
So your
"That's-
neighborhood was really big on smoking animals out and just
Yeah, we had,
disposing of them.
well, I gotta say, when the kids were, once we had a few beers, we came up with a lot of creative ideas.
Hey, who among us?
I mean,
Big
I'm
ones,
jealous
right?
as
Wait a
hell
minute,
that I
real
didn't
quick.
live in that neighborhood. I wish
Real
I was
quick,
there.
We were having a driveway party real quick, and somebody saw a motion in the driveway. Big, had to be 7 foot long black snake. Started climbing up the back of our house, got a hoe, knocked it down. My neighbor came over with a 22 and shot it 7 times. He missed 6 times before he hit it.
Good
Oh
Lord.
my goodness.
just right in our yard." And this isn't like the boonies. This is like the suburbs of, yeah,
Philadelphia.
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah. So, you
Well,
know,
hey, listen, that was, love your guys' podcast. You guys are awesome. Love you. And,
thanks, Dad.
Oh, thank
I
you.
love you.
Congratulations again, Cons. Have a great show.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks,
All right.
Dad.
Thank
Love
you.
you.
I feel like that is the type of the way that you describe your neighborhood and your dad's friends. It's like a sitcom. Like that's how I
Oh.
imagine like Tim the Toolman Taylor and Wilson hanging out and talking to each other over the fence, getting like Wilson's like, "What's going on, Tim? Oh, I got a groundhog underneath the shed. It's giving me a lot of trouble."
You should have had my mom on to tell you about how where are the dads? Where are the dads? They're always hanging out. They were always hiding from all of us, hanging out in a
Mhm.
group, finding reasons to just. We were teenagers by the time they all decided to build a tree house together for us. When we were like way past wanting
That was
that.
for them.
And
That
it
was
was for
probably
them.
for
They
them.
spent a whole summer crushing buds, building a tree house on telephone poles in my neighbor's
I'll tell you
backyard
what.
together.
As an adult now, give me a tree house. You know,
Mhm.
we have one couple who are friends of ours, and it's a garage, but it's not attached. So you could really make it whatever you want. Like men, I think at any age love the idea of having a clubhouse, and that comes in all shapes and sizes, different forms, but I fully support all of them. And I meant to ask him, but I'll ask you, Kate, how old were you when the squirrel incident happened?
I
Was
want
this like 11, 12?
I want to say I was probably around 11. I was between 9, 10, 11. I was somewhere in that range. But yes, I was
Okay.
always finding. So I was always finding little critters around yeah. It was a great spot.
This is a
It was great
normal
place.
occurrence for you. Yeah.
Totally.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But we
But it
appreciate him
is
coming
sad
out
when
and
you
clearing
find
it
a
up.
dead animal. When you're a kid and there's a dead animal that
Oh,
comes and there's
dude.
nothing you could do, it's because you're just looking at your parents and like, come on, man. Like this robin is dead, dude. Like, what are we
The other
supposed
thing
to do with
too,
this
you
robin?
think about, hey, Katie brought us a squirrel. That squirrel could have rabies or any sorts of different diseases that you don't want to touch that thing and maybe get a disease. So
Yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah.
little Katie standing there with her mullet and her wonky eye, like it's just like you gotta do everything you can. to
I
help
picture
her.
young Kate always having like some portion of dirt somewhere on her face.
Oh, I was so
know?
proud. I was one of the dirtier kids in class for sure. I had that mole. Remember, I had that
Yeah.
huge hairy mole on my
Yeah,
face.
and the mullet too.
It was probably flapping in the breeze when I was riding my bike home with that squirrel in the hat. Now, this other time we went to Ireland. My brother had an internship there. So on spring break, we go to visit him. And my dad and I are walking on this beach with these huge cliffs, and there's goats on the cliffs. And he's like, "Don't worry, goats are the most sure-footed animals you ever could see." We come around the bend and there's a goat just fucking splattered on the beach. I swear to God. So anyway, we have bad luck.
Hmm.
What's round number
Anyway.
one?
Let's get into round number one today. We're going to be talking about the C-130. First of all, if you guys were able to take, let's say you could take Air Force One. You could take it anywhere in the world, like Cons, you just had your wedding. For your bachelor party, if old Sleepy Joe called you up, he's like, "Hey, I'm doing a lot of napping this weekend. You can have the jet, take it wherever you want to go." Where are you taking the president's jet?
Wow. You got to go somewhere far to really milk that.
Mhm, mhm.
I'd probably do like a few different spots. Like I'd go across the pond and start with golf in Scotland and then take it down to Ibiza. I think that'd be a good idea and a good trip that could cover a lot of different bases, golf, but then I don't know, whatever they do in Ibiza from things I've seen.
Kate?
I'm going to Hawaii. I don't even care about Hawaii. I'm gonna double down on
The
partying
longest flight
on
you
the
could think
plane.
of.
I'm just gonna party my ass off. Me and all my buddies, we're gonna get fucked up on Air Force One. When it
That would
lands,
be
we're gonna
so much fun to get hammered on Air Force One or do some 3-cheat goofing would be incredible.
Oh,
It's basically
absolutely.
a flying house party. And
Yes,
I mean, the best parties
plane
I've ever
itself
been
would be
to in
the
my
party.
life were house parties. Yeah.
I'd be holding press conferences up there with a little doobski in my mouth. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
Borrow
Mhm.
Reagan's old sweatpants and pull it up to your nips. Like that would be incredible.
yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Not your nips. That was directed at
Thank
cons.
you. I knew.
So
Mhm.
I think I would take mine to St. Martin, that airport where it
Oh,
lands over
yes.
the fence.
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
people would be
that's a
like, oh
flex.
my God. And then you're the one that step off and you're going to play golf in St. Martin. That would be incredible.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Well, some other people did a little bit different. They went to not a bad spot. Martha Vineyard is not a bad spot if you're going to be going places, right?
Oh, very
Yes.
nice.
Uh-huh.
Very
So
nice.
Kate, walk us through what happened here.
Right. The Air Force C-130 is one of the most versatile aircraft in its arsenal. It can deliver close air support, put out wildfires, and pick up special operations from austere landing strips in the middle of nowhere. In fact, the Hercules showed off its ability to pick up cargo and rapidly take off again in the Northeast. Early Friday afternoon, residents of the famous Massachusetts island, Martha's Vineyard, were surprised to see a C-130 with its 4 big, loud turboprop engines appear in the sky, land at Martha's Vineyard Airport, drop its cargo ramp, pick up a motorcycle, and then take off again in about 15 minutes.
Nice motorcycle.
That's a nice motorcycle.
Okay.
That's a nice C-130 with the motorcycle on it.
Whoa, C-130.
Whoa, wow,
Okay.
yeah, okay, okay. You don't see that every day, said local resident Doug Ulwick, who is dining at nearby Plainview restaurant.
I wonder if that's Dana Ulwick's fucking relative.
It has to be. I feel like that's not a very common name.
If those are listening to Not Barstool Heads, she was one of the original interns at Barstool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyway, her dad's sitting at Plainview restaurant at the time and could see the whole affair, according to Martha's Vineyard's Times, which first reported the story.
Not the Will Smith Jada Pinkett affair. Not that one with August.
Different affair. This is less of an entanglement, more of a landing.
Right.
Unlike white-threaded sparrows, American goldfinches, or cedar waxings, the C-130 is not a bird often seen in Martha's Vineyard. Who wrote this sassy minx? In fact, this particular Hercules had come all the way from Keesler Air Force. Your ugly, yellow, no good Keesler Air Force Base off my property.
Off my property.
Yeah. Anyway, in Mississippi, came all the way from Mississippi, where it is assigned to the 403rd Wing's 53rd Weather Recon Squadron. A spokesperson for the 403rd.
We'll just throw recon into anything these days.
Yeah.
Weather
actually,
recon.
I was reading about the Air Force's weather recon. They're tough.
Yeah, I think they're actually considered special operators.
Yes, they are. A spokesperson for the 403rd, which makes sense with the motorcycle connection to me, if you ask me.
Yes.
Spokesperson for the 403rd confirmed the incident. The crew picked up a motorcycle that belonged to one of the crew members, said Lieutenant Colonel Marnie Lacerdo at the Wing's Chief of Public Affairs. Leadership is aware of the incident, which is under investigation. Once the investigation is complete, we'll provide additional information. Now, the 2022 hurricane season is on the horizon, but it was unclear exactly what the crew of the 53rd was doing in Martha's Vineyard last week. Lacerdo said they were performing an off-station training mission before making an unplanned stop, but didn't share any details. Hey, if you're already in town,
right,
why not pick up the
I
motorcycle?
see no issue with this.
Of course,
well,
here's the issue, Cons. Of course, Officer Cons doesn't see an issue. Old money bags.
Special privileges? Why? What's wrong with that?
Why we always took all C-130s to the wineries.
We had father pick us up in the Air Force too.
Papa. Of course, with inflation and gas prices being what they are, it's hard to blame a crew member for making a quick pit stop to pick up their bike on the way home.
Is it hard to blame them though?
No, it's not.
I think it's pretty easy.
Yeah, still, there's a reason why Air Force Manual 11202, a longtime stoolie, Air Force Manual 11202,
11 TAC 202.
Yeah, compels air crews to ensure off-station training archives valid, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of words there. Basically, they had to come up with this document to be like, stop making wasteful pit stops. This was such a problem in the past that they had to like put a, because I can see
they did it last year. Do you remember I think we did a story on it. I know we did, where you had different, and it was Air Force pilots again that stopped over at Trump's golf club in Scotland. Like they actually did do what Cons had said. Like they stopped there, they were doing training, and they designed their trips where instead of staying at a cheap spot, they stayed at Trump's place, and it was like $300 something a night, and they were staying there over and over again, bringing in ecstasy pills that Kate brought to the desert and getting fucked up. It was insane.
Yeah, totally. Well, a few years ago, we also did a story where it was one of the guys' daughter's proms, and he coordinated it to fly over and like almost hover above her prom photos or something. And then they calculated the cost
imagine
of
if
it.
you had one of those like Celine Dion moments where it's like lights of endless pleasure. And you have a helicopter blowing your hair and you're at prom. That would be like the Instagram story of the century. Exactly. Every time I bring up songs, you guys take it way too far, and you'll just sing like the rest of
them. Some say not far enough.
Yeah, Nights of Endless Pleasure. Anyways, back in 2018, the commander of the Vermont Air National Guard was booted from his job for using an F-16 fighter jet for a booty call in DC.
We covered that one too. We're all over these pilots.
Again, 23-year-old Kate, you fly your F-16 down and you park it in my driveway.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You're getting the whole reverse Shyamalan.
I mean, somebody did that for me. I'd suck the skin off.
Absolutely. Are you kidding? This coin purse, toss your change in, pal.
Oh yeah. I mean, any slits getting sliced. That's what I say.
It's too much. Too much.
Anyways, well, that's what happened with this group.
I'm not done yet.
Oh, she's not done.
I'm enjoying this conversation.
Okay.
Back in 2006, 2 airmen from the New York National Guard were doing narcotics smuggling from Germany with theirs.
That we don't condone.
Besides the financial cost, God forbid something went wrong during this mission. That would be a fucking horrible thing. Well, what were they doing? Picking up Jared's motorbike on Martha's Vineyard.
Let me see it. Okay, that's a nice one.
Okay, that's a motorcycle. Anyways, it was a vintage. I saw a vintage BMW motorcycle. I used to own an old vintage BMW motorcycle. So that's how I know, said Tristan Israel, a local county commissioner and snitch, who was also eating at the Plainview restaurant. And this is what he's telling the Martha's Vineyard Times. Israel guessed it was pre-1972 based on the logo. This guy only wanted to talk to the Martha's Vineyard Times to let them know he knows about fucking motorbikes.
Incredibly smug here. Just based off of my observation. I love vintage motorcycles. I'd say that's a 72 BMW.
Yeah, I get it though. If I'm from Des Moines and we're flying a mission that happens to go over it, I'm like, my mom just texted she has cookies coming out of the oven in 20 minutes. Do you guys want it?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, listen, let's stop.
This sounds, all of these examples are very much big ask for forgiveness, not permission type things. Because obviously if you say like, hey, do you mind if we stop and pick up that motorcycle? You're going to get told no 10 out of 10 times. But I think you just take your chances, because for every story like this, there's probably another 5 where we don't hear about them, or people are able to skirt the rules a little bit better and pick up their motorcycles and cars and what have you.
But also, how do you think that you're not going to get caught doing this? I mean, if
they only got
by Airman O'Malley and the squad at Andrews Air Force Base, you're getting caught at Martha's Vineyard. You just
they only got caught because nobody has anything better to do on Martha's Vineyard. That this was so newsworthy. Somebody at that restaurant called the news and was like, "You're not going to believe what we just saw at the airport."
Right. That's why you got to pick a different spot to go to. You can't go to Martha's Vineyard or a tiny little spot. You got to go to a busy airport.
Yeah.
But I mean, no matter where, if you're at a civilian airport and a C-130 lands, that garners a little bit of attention. Like no matter where you go.
You're right.
I saw a C-130 a week or 2 ago flying down the Hudson.
It's exciting.
It was like, oh, hey.
It's not one, because it's so big. It's not like one of these other small planes that flies around. Like you land, any military plane lands at a civilian airport, it garners attention. I mean, if you have an F-35 that just cruises in and is
they're coming to force vaccinate all of us.
Jet that's going from San Antonio to El Paso, you notice that too. Like you just notice
where
military
the tinfoil
grade planes.
hat posts come from,
right?
For sure.
Excellent point, Kate. Excellent
Thank you.
point. All right, let's move on to round number 2, which is going to be brought to you by our good friends at Roman. If you are swooping into Martha's Vineyard and you want to swoop into her vineyard, make sure you do it where you can last a little bit longer. You don't have to just go into her Martha's Vineyard for a day, for like an hour. You could park there for a week or 2. Goodness. That's why you use Roman.
That's a nice motorcycle.
Exactly right. Oh,
I have a confession.
You're lasting longer in bed. Okay.
Okay.
I have a confession. I laugh at that every time you guys do that. I have no idea what it's from.
Oh, it's from I think
you never will.
Tim Robinson.
Oh, okay. Now I know.
Roman swipes can be shipped to you discreetly in an unmarked package, and each one can fit inside your coin purse or wherever you need to keep it. They're super easy to use. Just take the swipe out of the packet, swipe it on, let it dry. You're good to go. Just go to getroman.com/ZBT to get your first month of swipes for just $5 when you choose a monthly plan. That's getroman.com/ZBT. Let's move on to something else that involves sex. That's Madison Cawthorn. What do we got going on with distinguished congressman from North Carolina?
Let me tell you, it is a spicy meatball, folks. Not to be stereotyping. Why did I do that? Anyways,
I don't know.
Keep
going. So,
apologies to any producers on this podcast.
Whoa.
What am I doing? I'm digging a hole. Representative Madison Cawthorn said on a podcast earlier this week that fellow lawmakers have invited him to orgies and done cocaine in front of him. And this is the actual quote from the podcast. This is him speaking on the podcast. And this is his actual voice. Ready? Let's play it now. The sexual perversion that goes on in Washington, being kind of a young guy here in Washington, where the average age is probably 60 or 70. You look at all the, no, I can't talk that way that long. The sexual perversion that goes on. I would do it as
fucking FDR.
FDR,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, please.
The sexual perversion that goes on in Washington, being kind of a young guy in Washington, where the average age is probably 60 or 70. You look at all these people, a lot of them that I've looked up to through my life. I've always paid attention to politics. Then all of a sudden you get invited. We're going to have a sexual get-together at one of our homes. You should come. What did you just ask me to come to? And then you realize they're asking you to come to an orgy. Some of the people are leading on the movement and try to remove addiction in our country. And then you watch them do a key bump of cocaine right in front of you. And it's like, this is wild.
That kind of trailed off into like a British FDR.
But I liked it.
That was great.
I like that. So when someone invites him to a sexual, someone invites him to a sexual get together, and he's like, "What does that mean?
A sexual get together, Mother, Nancy has invited me to a sexual get together.
Please prepare my clothing accordingly.
It will be me, Nancy, Mrs. Walters.
We're taking the C-130 to the sexual get together on Martha's Vineyard this weekend, Mama.
I'll be riding in the sidecar of the motorcycle.
Anyway, GOP lawmakers were reportedly skeptical about Cawthorn's claims. Well, I will say I'm not skeptical. They're all a bunch of motherfucking freaks. We've all heard the rumors that can't be substantiated. They're left, right, I don't care. They're all a bunch of fucking hypocritical.
There's a reason why the old saying goes, don't even bother coming to the Rayburn building unless you can suck a golf ball through a garden hose.
Exactly. Yep. And sorry, we've been through a couple times, folks.
Good luck.
Yeah. Anyway, GOP lawmakers were reportedly skeptical, wink, wink, about Cawthorn's claims, with some considering whether his intention was to boost his appeal to voters by depicting himself as not a participant in these alleged acts. Worth noting here, I'm going to say it, he's not seen as an angel. For those who don't know, he's been accused of sexual misconduct by many, many women from high school through college and wherever. Over 150 former students.
College, mind you, that was not the Naval Academy.
Not the Naval Academy. Patrick Henry College signed a letter saying that his predatory behavior.
By the way, I'm sorry.
His predatory behavior was so well known around campus that women warned each other, hey, don't be alone with that guy. His alleged modus operandi was to invite unsuspecting women on joyrides in his white Dodge Challenger.
White Corvette.
He would then drive them to secluded areas, lock the doors, and proceed to make advances on them. That was his MO that women were like, that they knew. And I was reading stories of women saying like, yes, this is exactly what he did to me. Like several. Anyways, so he's no angel, but anyways, he's playing one. There's really only one question these days for North Carolina Representative Cawthorn. Then who are you talking about? Who's putting those pineapples on their front patio and tossing their keys on the bowl and getting it on? I want to know. Now, that was always the rumor for us with officer housing. That's what we were told you guys all did on the weekends, Cons.
Oh.
Key parties.
Yeah.
The Navy is huge in swinging. The Navy community, I don't know why, but there's something about it. that if you go onto like any Navy-based Facebook, you're gonna find swingers in an instant.
Really?
Oh yeah, huge swingers.
Whoa,
Yeah.
port to port.
Maybe it has something to do with, maybe it has something to do with spouses, coming and going as much. So you just kind of find other people to satisfy.
I think it's
your
just
needs.
a pirate life.
And listen, I'm not judging. I say do it, but then just don't go restricting everybody else's fun times if you're gonna be goofing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Anyways,
but it's just so like the whole open relationship thing. That's another conversation for another day. I don't know how people do it. I'd be so jealous. Like when people
couldn't do it.
I don't understand. How could you watch somebody have sex with your spouse or your significant other and be like, this is fine? Like
I have too much of a hard time taking things seriously. I'd be like, oh my God, look at his butthole, man. What? I'd be too weirded out by the whole thing.
Just goofing the whole time.
Yeah, I'd be so busy goofing. I'd be like, wait till I tell him about what his face looked like afterwards. What a goof.
You see Becky come? What a loser.
Yeah, I would have a really difficult time being sexy during, I'm too awkward.
You'd be watching out for all the other ladies, Kate. Like you'd be like, no, this is not just for fella enjoyment. Give her some attention.
Yeah,
too.
you make sure she gets a good time. Yeah, I definitely.
I mean, I'm not, obviously we've heard stories, but I'm not surprised about this. If you took any collection of a few hundred people across the country, these sorts of things are going to be, I won't say prevalent, but they exist, right? But I think it's because we have this idealized view, even today, even with how screwed up politics and Washington are in general, we still have this view like these politicians are like the cream of the crop and prim and proper.
Oh, they're cream.
So let's
never
say
do such things.
How many? Let's put a percentage on it of people that are in Congress. What percentage of folks in Congress do you think are actively doing cocaine or that equivalent of drug and having orgies? I would say I would probably put it around 10%, 10-15%.
Oh, I was gonna say 87.
Oh wow.
I was gonna say lower.
Everyone
I was gonna say single digits.
1 out of 10.
10%.
1 out of 10 of every one of the I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah, I don't think it's as crazy as he's making it out to seem.
Do you think
well,
a couple
it's not
people?
Because he goes on to say that.
Yeah. Do you think a couple people heard about this too and were like, "Hey, I've never been invited to one"? It was an old Mitch McConnell. It's like, wait a minute.
Oh no, he's been snorting it up. He's been doing nose beers for years.
For sure. Anyways, he says this on this podcast. It immediately goes viral, and immediately the GOP is not having a good time.
Well, it's probably one of those things, Kate, like your squirrel story, honestly, where you're in the middle of a podcast and you just you say something. And then you're like, oh shit, I'm on a podcast and other people are going to hear this. I'm not just talking with some friends. And then
people are going to think my family abuses animals.
Right. Next thing you know, you're sitting in the fucking GOP leader's office explaining why you're talking about key bumps and people getting their butthole tickled.
True. That's true. Well, so amid complaints from members, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy hauled Cawthorn into his office Wednesday morning and pressed him on the unsettling allegations.
I like to picture him actually hauling him, like got him by his collar, and he's like, "Come on, you dumb bitch, let's go."
By the ear, tugging him by the ear, which he said Cawthorn admitted were untrue and told that which McCarthy made Cawthorn say were not true, is the way I would rephrase that, and told freshman lawmakers oh my God, gold Katie squirrel brain over here. McCarthy told the freshman lawmaker he needs to get his act together or else he would face internal consequences. He's got to turn himself around, McCarthy told reporters. I just told him he's lost my trust and he's going to have to earn it back. I laid out everything I find that's unbecoming. He's got a lot of members upset. I wouldn't use the word unbecoming there. He's got a lot of members upset.
This guy is like, he's a congressman and they're treating him like he cheated on an algebra
broke
test.
the curfew.
Yeah, right. You can't just make statements out there. Many Republicans who say Cawthorn has rebuffed repeated attempts to show him the ropes think he is more interested in generating headlines than serious legislating and has alienated himself in the GOP as a result. Some Republicans worry that Cawthorn and a handful of other vocal fringe members in the party are hurting the GOP brand and creating an unnecessary and unwelcome distraction in their quest to win back the majority. Retiring Senator Richard Burr, the senior GOP senator from North Carolina, said he won't be getting involved in Cawthorn's primary and added, on any given day, he's an embarrassment.
That is, to me, that of all the different statements about it, having the senator from your own state criticize the person in your own party, who by and large would be a pretty shoo-in to win his seat again, is pretty remarkable, really. Like to say that he's an embarrassment every day is about as strong as of an admonishment as you could possibly have.
But can I say?
Yeah, go ahead.
If Cawthorn said, he's not my cup of tea, not my kind of guy. If he said, if you vote for me and I get elected, I'll do a tell-all. All right. Yeah, all right.
I think it's more likely he does a tell-all if he doesn't get reelected.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, that too.
Because that
well,
book would be something.
As
long as it's not in his handwriting.
He just clearly has zero judgment and can't exercise it at any point. Because my guess is, though, too, I'm not saying that these things don't happen down there in Washington, down there on the Hill, but it's very possible that these things are happening with people on staffs, and he just embellished it to sound better.
I think what he's saying is 1,000% true. I think there's definitely orgies and cocaine use in Congress, like without question. Not so many political thrillers involve that line. That doesn't happen unless there's an acorn of truth in that. A lot of squirrel talk here today.
Yeah, a lot of squirrel talk. But I mean, I don't fully recall, but I feel like there were storylines that were similar to this on House of Cards, and they definitely pulled some truths from Washington in that. So it's not crazy. He just, I don't know, he can't get out of his own way, and it's.
Oh, wait a minute. Excuse me. Is this thing on?
Yes.
Hi, welcome to the ZBT Comedy Club. Have you guys heard about Madison Cawthorn and his allegations? No, no wonder they can't drain the swamp. That city sounds like it's too damn wet. Boy, oh boy, sounds like the Capitol building isn't the only thing getting its dome worked on all the time down there. A lot of tunneling going on under that building, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Really putting the CUM in District of Columbia. There's a CU and an M in those words. House and Senate chambers are nice, but we're hearing there's a dungeon too, not just chamber. Have you guys been to the Smithsonian Museum? Moan. Sounds like Congress is the stiffest branch. There's a lot of streets named after letters of the alphabet in DC, and everybody seems to be meeting up at the corners of B and J. That city's for sure not in Virginia.
Let's move on to round number 3. This time we're going to talk about taking another jet, not stopping at Martha's Vineyard, but stopping wherever you want to, because the Mexican president feels like he's going to open up his own little airline version of Airbnb, which is kind of genius, honestly.
Kind of genius. Yes. Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador said Monday that he has now essentially given up on his bid to sell off the presidential jet and will instead rent it out for weddings or parties. He admitted the government has not been able to sell the Boeing 787, which he calls too luxurious and refuses to use. Imagine a world where the president was concerned about how much money he's spending up here.
That would be awesome.
Imagine it. Yeah. Instead, the president said he will simply give the jet to a military-led company that will operate the Mexico City out of the Mexico City airport. The plane will be parked there and will be available for people to rent and hold in-flight parties on board. That's fucking incredible, sick. Dude. I love awesome. A party bus. I
wonder how much that is. Can we get it?
Let's find out.
I mean, that honest to God would be incredible. I wonder if we could rent it out. How does it say how much it would be?
No, it doesn't. The plane was purchased for $200 million and was used by the previous president. So I'm assuming it'd be a little pricey, but it can carry up to 300 passengers. We chop that
thing up 300 different ways. That's an affordable party for us.
Yeah, comfortably 80. Cons, no offense, your wedding was great, but you should have had it here on this plane.
You're right. That was a huge mess by us.
We could have had the wedding on this plane on the way to Florida.
Yes.
And then, but I love this. I love that the president is like, it's too expensive to whatever. Let's just make some money off it instead.
You know who else did that?
Who?
The Pope did that. Whenever he took over as the Pope, he said that he wants to get rid of all the fancy stuff. He doesn't like there was a Lamborghini. It was either a Lamborghini or a Ferrari that was made exclusively for the Pope for like a 500th anniversary of something. And the Pope took it, immediately sold it and gave the money to Catholic charities and was like, I don't want this. I don't want fancy things. And he doesn't even live in the Pope's chambers at the Vatican. He lives in a small room where the other priests live too. He doesn't want all that, which I think is awesome. I found out how much it cost to do it.
How much?
How much do you guys think? It goes by the
Ooh.
hour too.
I'm gonna say
Saying 10K
it's
an hour.
10K
I'm
an
gonna
hour.
I'm gonna say because of fuel, it covers food, everything. I'm gonna say it's 50K an hour. That seems crazy,
I didn't
but
consider all the fuel and everything. I was just concerned just get
Yeah.
it rented. Yeah, but
You want to
50
adjust
even
your
sounds
answer?
closer to 50. I'll say 49K.
Nick,
Closest without going
you
over.
got a guess?
I have no idea. I mean, I think it's higher, maybe.
All right. So the average rental rate is $30,000 for a plane that size. Even if it's not the president's plane, they are going to try to get $175,000 an hour. For
Holy
this plane.
shit.
Oh my God.
Holy shit.
Mhm.
Yikeroonies.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, but obviously the people who can afford something like that,
Oh, you're a billionaire.
can-
Yeah.
yeah, you're doing
And there
crazy
are
parties
people
on,
that-
on a Tuesday. So you got to go outside the box and do something a little different. So you're gonna spend that 175K to have a party on a plane.
It
Yep,
really
that's
shows
such a
the
status
difference
thing.
between like super rich and like the normal person. Like, because even if you're in the 1% of earners, like to be a 1% earner in the United States, you have to earn around $450,000 to be a 1%er. If you're doing that, you are nowhere near able to rent this thing out, even a 1%er. That's like when Dave puts out his Barstool Sports book bet on like a big game, it'll be like $250,000. It's so much fucking money, man. Like,
I do $25 and I feel sick to my stomach. I'm like, oh boy. Oh, man,
Yeah.
that's a pack of diapers. Fuck.
100. But if you had it, if you have like $500 million and you want to have one of those parties, because once you reach that level of wealth where you could do anything on any given day that you want to,
Exactly.
this is what you buy, things that nobody else can.
Oh yeah.
You gotta
Nobody
get
at that
creative with
price-
how to spend your money.
No one going to those parties are impressed that you can get a fucking new Apple Watch. Like, no one cares.
I
Yeah.
bet a lot of drug lords are going to do the whole Pretty Woman thing where they just they spend that money to fly one lady to the opera for a couple hours, you know,
Mm-hmm.
snap her
yeah.
with a little boop, with a little necklace.
Right. So I don't
Anyway.
think we're going to be doing that anytime soon, but it is cool that they are allowing folks to do that. And you're right, Kate. I wish that our government would have a little bit of fiscal responsibility. That would be insane. That'd be
It
wild.
would be. And in closing, if I could throw a party at any government entity using our equipment, I would do one of those nuclear silos in Nebraska because the acoustics probably go nuts. I'd bring Diplo. I'd have tanks with beer coming out their little tank noses.
Mhm. That's
when
what they call
you-
'em, tank noses.
Little tank elephant trunks, I guess. Tank
And if
trunks.
they get stuck, it's like a snot rocket.
Yeah,
It
a little
is.
beer rocket comes out. And you can press the old nuke buttons and steam comes out with laser beams going through it.
A tank, but with a hot tub on the inside.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Be incredible.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to round number 4. Talk a little bit about flamingos. What's going on with these flamingos, Kath?
Oh yeah, hot. You thought the Madison Cawthorn thing was crazy. Wait till you hear about these
Hot
flamingos.
pink patoots.
An African flamingo missing from a Kansas zoo for 17 years was recently spotted out in the wild in Texas. The AP reported that the pink bird is one of 2 flamingos that escaped from the Sedgwick County Zoo in Wichita, Kansas during a 2005 storm. On Tuesday, the Texas Department of Parks and Wildlife said they found the escaped flamingo in video footage from March 10th around Rhodes Point and Cox Bay. Longtime stoolie, Rhodes Point and Cox Bay.
Oh, I love
Uh,
Cox
the-
Bay. Get it in there.
Dude, big Cox Bay for sure. The flamingo is easily
That's
identifiable
what they're
due to
calling
the
the
number.
Chesapeake after Madison Cawthorn's fucking podcast appearance.
Yeah, the old Potomac is just a Cox Bay. The flamingo is easily identifiable because of a number on its leg, number 492.
Oh, that's what it was?
Yep. And when the 2
Easily identifiable
flamingos
'cause of the
escaped
number?
in
Yeah.
2005, their wings weren't clipped, which made fleeing the zoo easier for the birds. While there are no reported sightings of the flamingo that is not 492, 492 has been seen in Wisconsin, Louisiana, Texas over the years, and all over the place pretty much on Memorial Day
Just
weekend.
goofing.
Just goofing. Both of the escaped flamingos were initially transported to the zoo from Africa in 2004 with almost 40 other flamingos. In 2007, Sedgwick County Zoo officials stated it's hard to capture the bird back without disturbing other wildlife. So pretty much just let it go. It's pretty sweet that this bird in a totally other country, totally different habitat now is just crushing it. Hell yeah.
We should put Sydney on the case.
We should. Yeah. Barstool
Let's get her
Outdoors. Go
involved.
find this bird.
Mhm.
This made me think really quick, even though you said it's not AWOL if they're still around. It's what is it? Desertion?
Desertion. Yeah.
This flamingo deserted. this sent me down a little bit of an AWOL rabbit hole. Would you like some quick AWOL facts?
I do.
Yes.
Okay.
Like I need my next air to breathe.
More U.S. military personnel deserted during the Vietnam War than any other war in modern American military history. According to the DoD, there were a total of, can you guess the number if you're not looking at the sheet?
I already saw it.
Sorry.
But I would have never guessed this.
Never
I wouldn't
guessed
have guessed that either.
I would have
According
guessed.
to the-
My guess probably would have been around 5,000. Would have
Yep.
been my
I would have
guess.
guessed like 500.
Yeah, my guess would have probably been somewhere between the two. According to the DoD, there were a total of 926,000 desertions.
Nope, you read that wrong.
Can you somebody fucking read it for me?
503,926.
503,926 desertions between July. I tried so hard.
You really did.
Between July 1st, 1966 and December 31st, 1973, over 500,000. This compares with an estimated 50,000 desertions during World War II and 13,000 something during the Korean War. But the overwhelming majority of desertions during the Vietnam War occurred on U.S. soil, typically among troops who had returned from a tour of duty. So they were in between. They had already been there, seen it. We're like, I'm not about it. I'm not going back over there to die. Fuck this.
Dude, I don't blame anybody for doing that.
I don't blame anybody for that. I don't blame a fucking soul.
Like World War I time doing trench warfare, coming back halfway through your tour and be like, buddy, no thanks.
Yeah, you know what? I'm good. Yeah, only a small minority, probably no more than a few thousand, fled to foreign countries, including Canada, Mexico, and Sweden, where they joined an ever-increasing number of American draft registers. It's a tiny proportion of deserters who fled while actually serving in Vietnam. Like not that many.
Well, that's what I thought originally when before we got to the part where they said like they left when they came back on R&R. I thought like, wow, that's ballsy to just leave and go into a foreign country like that.
Yeah, and I read this on an author who wrote a book about. It was really difficult, especially to escape from Japan and go AWOL and leave. But there was a group of Japanese people who went underground to help make fake passports for American troops to help get them to Sweden so that they could just start a new life in Sweden. It's kind of an interesting story. But yeah, I had no idea that high of a number. So yeah.
That's insane. That's a bunch of people. All right, let's move on to round number 5. We're going to have our interview with Johnny Bananas. Here he is.
All right, joining us now on Zero Blog 30, a bit of an interesting person who I don't think, if you had asked me years ago, he would have matriculated from the No Quitters podcast to the Zero Blog 30 podcast. I would not have found a way to do this, but we are joined by the one, the only, the GOAT, Johnny Bananas. What is up, my friend?
Thanks for having me, guys. I could honestly say the same thing. I thought the only way these days to get on like one of the Barstool entities would be like, farting on someone's face or getting carried out of a.
That's usually what it is. Yeah.
Carried out of a gulag on someone's back. But apparently I found a different route.
Yeah, but you do have a military connection because you are a little bit of an Army brat, right?
I am. Yeah. My dad was in the 1st Infantry Division. He was a Vietnam vet, retired a CW5 in the military.
Wow. See that? Do you know how rare that is, Johnny?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know until I actually went with him. He got pinned to CW4. I actually pinned him for that. And then, and I remember talking to his General Helix, who basically is the one that took him under his wing and really kind of, kept him out of trouble after he went back active duty. And at 4, General Helix was telling me how rare it was. So so my dad making it to 5 was a big deal. So
I think there's less 3-star generals, less lieutenant generals, or there's more 3-star generals than there are Chief Warrant Officer 5s in the military, which is nuts. Like I saw one. And my old sergeant major stopped me one time. We were walking and he was like, boys, gather around. This is like seeing a wild sheep. Like you just don't see a CW5 out in the wild.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how old were you when he got out of the military and where were some places did you moved a lot and you grew up all over or what?
No. So I actually, so he was stationed in, I grew up with my mom. But my dad he was stationed in Los Alamitos for a while. He was in intelligence and then went to St. Louis because then he got into personnel. And then he ended up, when he retired, he ended up in Fort Totten, which is Bayside, Queens in New York. So that's actually after high school. That's when I moved out to New York. That's kind of where my life diverged and took a completely different path. But that was in 2000. Moved out to Long Island, he was stationed at Fort Totten at the time. And this was right after 9/11. So when they mobilized all the troops to go over to Afghanistan, I mean, he was in personnel at the time. So that was his main job. I mean, that's what he wanted to deploy. I'm like, Dad, come on, you're pushing 70. Like, let's relax here. But he was responsible for putting a lot of units together and sending them over there. And I remember, going through that whole experience. So, pretty crazy, man. And to this day, I mean, my dad, 99% of the quotes that he uses are all, from the military.
Same.
So, he's had a hard time over the years accepting the fact that I took this like route and went into like reality television. And
I was going to ask you, what did your father say to you when he's, fighting our country's wars? He's serving a very lengthy career. And you're like, Dad, I'm going to go be on reality TV.
He had no idea what to think of it, dude. I mean, my dad was trying to get me to join the reserves until I was like 33 years old. And I'm like, Dad, I'm pretty sure my time has passed, right? Yeah. What's funny though, is I actually tried to join in high school. So I wanted to be a firefighter in high school. All right. And I remember and the military recruiters came, one day to our campus, and it was like, the Marines, the Navy, the Army guys, and they sat us all down and they were like, doing the whole hoorah speech, why you should join. And I remember one of the firefighters that was, one of the senior guys at the station I was a junior firefighter at, said, he goes, if you get some military experience and you're a firefighter in the military, which was a 51 Mike, which was the MOS, he was like, you'll have a lot better shot once you get back as a civilian. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of in the back of my head. I was like, all right.
And it's a lie. They're all in cahoots. Like, they're not going to take you. Like, you have to get your own. You still have to go to the school. You still have to get the certificates, all that stuff. Just, they're all in cahoots.
So after they do this whole hoorah speech, I go up and I talk to the Army recruiter, and I'm like, hey man, I was like, I'm interested in maybe becoming an Army firefighter. He's like, oh yeah, man, stop by my office and we'll work it out. So I go, about 2 minutes into talking about the firefighter, he's like, let me show you something else. This might be a little better cut out for you. Shows me this like montage of like guys with like bazookas, and like these dudes are like all jacked and they're like jumping out of helicopters and like whatever, blowing shit up. And he's like, this is an 11 X-ray. This is what you want to be. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. And it was like Army Rangers. I was like, sign me up. No idea what I'm signing up for. And this was pre 9/11. This was like 2000. This was right before 99. And I remember I was so geeked. I went to like MEPS. I did the whole, entrance and processing. I did the exam. They did the physical, the whole thing. And I got home and I told my dad, he's like, this ain't happening, dude. He goes,
really?
Yeah. Yeah. At the time he did not want me to, he didn't believe that what we were involved in at the time under that administration was necessary for me to potentially sign up and lose my life over. So he took me down. It was like a little kid, took me by my ear back to the recruiter's office. I was only 17 at the time, so I wasn't even 18. And he had me sign all the paperwork, but my dad's like, listen, I'm in personnel. You can't do this. Like the guy's like not even old enough to sign. You need like, parental permission. So he didn't give it. So he basically he pulled me.
Interesting. Then, I actually didn't know. I don't think I knew that about you. So that's actually interesting, because me and Chaps will tell you, like, we always hear stories about guys like, oh yeah, I was going to join the military and then I did X, Y, Z. But that's actually a pretty good story. So
it was him. He pulled me out, and then
I would do the same fucking thing. My kid's trying to do it. I'm like, hell no, you're not. I mean, and that really goes to show, like, because in 99 you had Clinton as the president, and then 2 years later things are drastically different. I think your dad would be like, yeah, sure, let's do what the Clinton administration is doing rather than full-scale combat.
And like I said, he made the right call, because and I remember talking about it a few years later. Once I went, I went to move to New York, went to Nassau Community College, got my, my associate's degree, transferred to Penn State. And I remember being in college and my dad being like, you were this close to being Army Special Forces, you would have been the first person over into this conflict, dude. So, thanks, Dad. But then after,
you have that experience in 2000 and where you're almost going into conflict, and then you actually do the reality TV show gig and career. What was his response like when you told him that you wanted to go over to Ukraine and Poland during this conflict?
He was actually really, believe it or not, my dad has now accepted the fact that I am going to do whatever I want to do. And it's almost like if you can't beat them, join them type of thing. And he was supportive of it, man. I mean, my dad knows that you know, I've got a good head on my shoulders, and he knows that, you know, I was going over there for the right reasons. And, you know, I had told him we were going to stay out of, obviously, the dangerous areas. But I'm fully supportive of it. I mean, you know, he even came around with the whole reality television thing. I mean, there was decade after I was on that. He's like, what is this real life thing? When are you going to get a real job? You know, let me take you down to the recruiter's office. We'll get you into the reserves 2 weekends a month. You know, then you're going to have a paycheck. You're going to have a pension and a paycheck forever. And I'm like 33 years old at recruiter's office. And these guys are like 18. They're like, wait, what does this guy want to do? He wants to join the military?
They're probably thinking like it was just a new show from MTV at that point where you were in your life.
Dad, I'm pretty sure that
so how does this passed. How'd you even make this happen? Like if I had said, all right, I want to go over to, you know, Ukraine or somewhere in that region of the world and help, I wouldn't even honestly know the first thing to do. So what did you do to get yourself over there?
So I have a friend named Scott, and what he does is he works with, he does a lot of influencer branding and influencer promotions, that sort of thing. So basically resorts or tourism boards or whatever will reach out to him and be like, hey, we want you to bring, you know, we want you to bring this type of influencer. We want to bring these people out to kind of like promote whatever, our resort, our country, our town, whatever. And he has a friend who's a philanthropist, who was a refugee himself years ago, who has a very, you know, a soft spot for, you know, crises globally when they take place. So when this thing kicked off, he basically reached out to Scott and said, listen, I'm working with this humanitarian organization in Poland called Humanash, and we would really like to get someone out there who has a platform, who would be willing to like potentially go into Ukraine to deliver humanitarian supplies and aid, and someone who kind of like has whatever travel, hosting, that sort of thing, just, you know, to be able to, again, provide awareness and kind of document, you know, this whole journey and get some exposure to this incredible organization that I work with. So he told me he called about 100 different people, reached out to about 100 different people. Me being one of them. They all said no, and I was the only one that agreed to do it. And this was on a Thursday. That Saturday, I was on a red eye to New York. We were in New York. We gathered up a bunch of supplies that had been donated from, you know, all over the country. Hopped on a plane Sunday night, and we were in Poland. We were in Warsaw Monday morning, and we just hit the ground running.
Now, I mean, like, you've never been in a war zone, but certainly through your challenge career, you've been all over the world and traveled at the drop of a hat. How much did that play into this, your willingness to go over and help?
So I like to say that sometimes, I mean, the challenge, it's not a, you know, it's not a war zone technically. Sport. It is, but it definitely has a lot of similar mental rigors and things that you kind of have to deal with from, you know, an emotional, mental standpoint, because I mean, dude, it's kind of brutal what we put ourselves through mentally. And I think that experience and kind of being in like those situations and I mean, dude, the last challenge I did, we were in, it's kind of funny how it's come full circle. The last challenge I did, Total Madness, was in a Soviet anti-aircraft missile bunker underground in the Czech Republic for 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. So, so it was just kind of funny how that, you know, I felt like everything that I had done and all the challenges and all the experiences, the traveling I've done, it kind of really set me up for this. But I mean, it was crazy, man. Like landing in Warsaw and being in a country that a country that's at peacetime and thinking like, you know, a day or two from now, we're going to be crossing over the border into a war zone. The crazy part was before we gathered all these supplies, there's people from all over, you know, Poland who had donated, as well as the stuff that we had brought. And we joined this humanitarian convoy. They had purchased 3 ambulances through donations. So we basically spent the first day we were there just loading these ambulances up with aid. And we were going to then take them into Lviv. We were going to drop off all the aid. Then the ambulances were going to continue on to like some of the other harder hit cities like Kiev and some of the other places. So we're in this convoy, right? And we're at this like staging point that's about 15 miles from the Ukrainian border. And it's like a makeshift, like a staging area. It used to be a shopping center.
So
and now it's
just a second. So when you're talking convoy, that like there's a military podcast that gives a very specific
humanitarian convoy.
Right. So I'm saying, are people like, are you in Toyota Tundras? Are you in armored vehicles and rolling with weapons?
No. We were in Sprinter vans. We were going to stay far away from anything that looked military because that's who they were targeting. Right. And we had to make sure before we left. Now what was crazy is there were multiple convoys. Like that was kind of one of the things that was a little bit freaky is as we're driving from Warsaw to the Ukrainian border, there's like, dude, we're going by like straight up, like, I mean, convoys of like military cargo trucks. And then there was like 3 tanks that were on flatbeds that were all rolling to the border. And it's kind of like, I'd rather see all this military stuff go in the opposite direction. You know what I mean? It's like, what are we getting ourselves into here?
And Connor and I have talked plenty of times about what your experience is like when you're in a combat zone. And the first time, like your tires go outside of like the wire, the gates, and you're actually in the war zone at that point. When you were in this van and you're actually rolling into Ukraine, was there ever a moment where you're like, I fucked up, like maybe I shouldn't be here right now doing this? What were your thoughts when, we would say you passed the line of demarcation and you're actually in a war zone? What was going through your brain at that moment?
So it was more, those feelings were all hitting me as we were like waiting to get across the border. Cause there was 2 checkpoints. There's the Polish checkpoint and then there's the Ukrainian checkpoint. And before we left, I mean, just to go back to what we were just saying, we had to like plaster this van that we were in with like red crosses. Okay. Because they were like, put one on the roof, put one on all the windows. Like we want to make sure that we are not going to be mistaken for anyone that's, you know, again, carrying, because that's what they were saying. They were like, humanitarian aid is one thing, but if we suspect you of carrying military aid, like that's a different story. You know,
well, they bombed a theater full of children. So
yeah. I mean, they give no shits, dude. So yeah, it was more like when we were waiting to go across the border, it was about 2 hours to get through. And, you know, they checked our passports. We went through the Polish checkpoint, then we got to the Ukrainian checkpoint. And again, it was just like the looks you're kind of getting from the border guards. And there is a clear distinction between how Poland is set up and their border checkpoint. And then once you get to Ukraine, it's like, you definitely feel like you are going from a more developed country into a developing country. And it was once we crossed the border and once we were like on our way, I will say where we were, I mean, the majority of the really bad stuff is taking place closer to the Russian border, more on like the eastern flank as opposed to the western side. That's where like Mariupol and Kherson and like all the really bad areas are. Lviv is still, I mean, they've gotten hit a couple times, but they're still kind of, you know, one of the safer areas. You've seen all the journalists kind of flee from other parts of the country. Now they're all reporting from Lviv. But I will say that what surprised me most is kind of how, now, it was really sad crossing into the border because there was a line probably a mile long of people trying to get into Poland with just the clothes on their back, suitcases, carrying babies. And dude, it's freezing cold out there. And it could take up to days to get through if people get through at all. But driving through Ukraine, I was shocked to see it, how people were just kind of like carrying on their normal lives. We're passing by coffee shops. There's people out having coffee. We're, driving down the street. There's kids playing in the street. There's people, walk. Now there was barricades and there were these, set up all over the streets that, like those tank stopper things where they've just like welded a bunch of I-beams in the different directions and sandbags and tires. And so there were like these set up, and you could tell they were ready to like be deployed at any moment to kind of like block the streets. But other than that, until we got closer to Lviv, we didn't really see much that would indicate that you were in a country that was at war. And that was
at any point, did you see or feel anything that made you feel like, okay, we're in a country at war?
Once we got closer to Lviv and we had to actually start going through like the more, the more set up, military checkpoints. And I mean, these guys are now coming up to the car with, heavy weaponry and, searching under your vehicle and that sort of thing. At one point I took my phone out just to be like, oh yeah, let me take a picture of this. And I got yelled at for that. But at no time, it's not like we were driving around craters in the ground. It wasn't like there was like buildings that were like smoking rubble, because Lviv hadn't gotten hit in any way, shape, or form at that point. There was a town about 30 miles away from where we were that had, it was like I don't know if it was a military staging point. That was what was really big in the news, is they were like, dude, Russia literally just hit a spot that was 15 miles away from Poland, which is a NATO country. So they were getting really, really close to, to kind of going over that demarcation line, as you were talking about. But,
and I want the listeners, just because I think there's so much geographically that most Americans don't understand. The difference between Lviv and Mariupol is 760 miles. So you're talking about more than double the distance that it is across Florida from the Panhandle to Jacksonville, double that. So whenever he's saying that he's not seeing war, it's because he's 760 miles away from where a lot of the heavy conflict is going around.
But that's not to say, and here's the thing, that's not there. While there's no, boots on the ground per se where we were, there's at any point, this is what they were saying, like a missile could just come out of the sky,
right,
and just like blow up a random building. And that hadn't happened yet. But it seemed like at this point, before, like, I guess early on in the conflict, it's like, we're going to take out military infrastructure. We're going to take out your, electrical grid. We're going to take out your radar, that sort of thing. Everything was kind of like, if military, by
the book almost. Like if you were like, hey, here's how to have a war, this is what they do. And it kind of quickly pretty much shifted from that.
Dude, then it went from that to like anything's fair game. Like you said, they're bombing theaters, they're bombing maternity wards. And now the two places that we were going to an oncology hospital to deliver medical supplies. And then we were going to a military academy in Lviv, which was kind of like, that was the one that I was kind of a little bit, a little bit ambivalent of, because
you
it's like,
construe that as a military target.
100%. I mean, it's fully fortified, dude. I mean, again, sandbags, and they've got like machine gun posts set up, and there's tanks outside, and they're flying the Ukrainian flag. Like, this would 100% be a target that they would probably go after. So, but yeah, we when we showed up, I mean, these guys were. What struck me the most was, you see a lot on TV, and you hear about, the soldiers and the military and these guys, and some of these kids were like 17, 18 years old, babies out there, dude, that were like, risky, obviously, like in a war zone and risking their lives, to protect their country. And it was kind of striking, man. So yeah, so being there and being able to kind of like interact with them, shake their hands, we delivered so much stuff, food, supplies, helmets, chainsaws. Like, that's the crazy thing, is like, you think in these conflicts, it's like, oh yeah, they need food, they need medical supplies and weapons, obviously. But like I said, we were delivering, antifreeze and gasoline and chainsaws and all these things, that, because you don't realize when it's like this full scale like war effort, they need everything they can get, because you just can't get supplies anymore.
And doing that and delivering it to a place like a a cancer hospital or an oncology unit is obviously something that needed to happen. Since you've come back to America, have you been hit with anybody saying like, oh, you're involved in trauma porn or war porn or anything like that? Has that been any pushback that you've gotten?
Not trauma porn. There was a few people that were saying that I did it for a photo op, and I'm like, listen, if I was gonna do a photo op, there's probably a lot easier and less dangerous places to do it. If I was gonna do a photo op, I would have went to like, I don't know, a rally, because there's rallies all over the country. I would have went there and got on the mic and said something, but it was like, no, man, this is something that I actually wanted to do. This is something that, Jordan from the challenge, Jordan Wisely, he's been there since March 2nd. Okay. This guy and his roommate just picked up and went. They had no idea what they were doing, where they were going. We at least had a plan. Like, we're like, this is who we're going to meet. This is who we're going to be working with. Dude, he's been there. He's been on the border. And I mean, the amount of good that guy's done is just incredible. And I will say that, like, watching him be there and seeing all the things that he was doing, that was one of the things that really inspired me to want to go. And it just so happened then that I got, a call from my friend and gave me the opportunity. And here's the deal. It's like, I'm not sitting here expecting people who want to like contribute or want to, even if people don't want to contribute, fine. I mean, this is a country that's half a world away. And a lot of people are like, well, how does this affect me? And for me, it was more like, I just have always been someone that just doesn't like bullies. And I've always been someone that just doesn't like seeing injustices around the world. And that's kind of like what's been happening. And if I could use, my resources, and if I could use my platform, and if I can use, kind of like my God-given abilities to go and provide some level of change, then, I had the time, I had the resources to go. And this is just something that I just wanted to be a part of, man. And I wanted to go and see for myself and help out and just kind of be a part of history. So, and
I think that's fantastic that you did utilize your platform and your resources, and you didn't have to. Certainly people have been offered the opportunity, as you said, called over 100 people, and basically everybody said no. So I think that's great that you did answer that call, and you didn't do it just for the photo op. As you said, there'd be a lot easier places to get a photo op. So you're back now, and now what? You got something else on the horizon, I think?
Well, there's a chance we'll be going back. So when we were at this oncology hospital, they said that they needed all the medical, any and all medical supplies, related to cancer treatment. They're the last oncology hospital in the entire country. So when I got back, I reached out to some friends of mine who are in the medical and medical sales, pharmaceutical sales fields, and we're in the process of getting a tremendous amount of aid and medicine donated. The tricky part is going to be shipping it over there and then again getting it into country. So we're kind of right now regrouping and potentially staging a return trip. But we'll see. I mean, this conflict just like is evolving every day. I mean, 2 days ago it was like, oh yeah, they're negotiating peace. And then the next day they're like, nah, never mind. They just bombed the shit out of, all around Kiev where they were said that they were going to stop. So you never know. And then the area that we were in, Lviv, which was up to that point, pretty much a safe space, was kind of, had been spared from the war. The day after we were there, an airport 4 miles away got hit in Lviv by cruise missiles. So, and then they just hit Lviv again. They hit like a warehouse or something like that, just, like last week. So it's still in flux, man. It's still, very real, but, yeah, for now, I mean, home, it took me a while to kind of like, it was weird. It's like everything happened so fast and we were on the ground. And I mean, every day was just so, packed full of, whatever, that once I got home, it was like when I first had time to like, not just catch up on sleep, but kind of like process the whole experience. And yeah, it's been, it was wild, man. So,
and how long were you actually on the ground?
7 days. So yeah, so we arrived on a Monday morning, and then we left, the following Sunday night. We were in Ukraine for a day, and the rest of the time we spent in Poland. We went to this humanitarian organization that we're with, Humanosh. They run 2 shelters in Warsaw. Before they would house Tibetan, Afghani, Belarusian refugees. but now they've obviously shifted their resources to Ukraine. So a house that before held 6 people has like over 30 in it now. Yeah. So we visited those. We met these 2 freedom fighters, Sergey and Alexander, who were from Belarus. They were basically persecuted in Belarus. They had to go to Ukraine. And then, now the Ukraine conflict is so these guys have both picked up arms and they're basically fighting for a country they're not even from. But I think the way a lot of these European countries
and in reality, kind of fighting the country that they are from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But a lot of these European countries see the same thing. It's like, listen, okay, yeah, maybe Ukraine isn't the country that we're from, but if Ukraine falls, what's that going to do? That's going to put Russia now
What's
on
the next
our
domino?
doorstep.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who's next? So I think that they all see it as, while it might not be their country right now that's getting invaded, they could be next if Ukraine falls. So there
It's
really
everybody's
is
fight in a lot of ways.
global effort, man. It's wild.
Yep. All right, Johnny. Well, if you go back over, hit us up and we'll have you back on to explain your second adventure over to a war zone on the
Maybe
Eastern
I'll
Bloc.
do it live from there. We'll do like a war correspondence situation.
Okay.
Look into
but
doing that.
I need you to make sure that you find a spot with at least 20 megabytes per second download speed. Otherwise,
Well, that
it'll
won't
just
be in
too
you.
blurry.
That won't be in Ukraine. Then we'll have to wait until I'm back in Lviv. Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. We
All right.
appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, boys.
Thanks, Sean. Good to see you, buddy.
Thanks to Johnny for coming on the show. Kate ruined it.
Yeah,
Let's
we
move on to
appreciate
save
it.
rounds and alibis. Nick, we'll start with you.
Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I appreciate everyone who subscribed recently. The numbers are still going up slowly but surely. But
I don't
thank you
appreciate
to-
people saying that I'm wrong in the comments. I don't like that.
I do. Any comment's a good comment. Tell him he's wrong.
Yeah.
Tell him
Tell him
he's
he's
wrong.
wrong.
as shit.
I don't care about what it is either.
Well,
Just
they
tell him
even
he's
said
wrong.
Cons was right and Chaps was wrong about a couple of things.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we like. That's what we really like.
It
See,
was
that's
about
what I think we're getting.
people are getting their little panties in a twist about Chris Rock getting slapped silly. Soft.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
Understood.
I still don't think that one was debatable. And also comments help the algorithm. So comment, do whatever you want. I don't care. Just keep
Yeah.
commenting. And yeah, WrestleMania is this weekend. So I'll be off the grid. I'll be off the clock.
Oh, hell yeah.
Just letting everyone, not that anyone cares. but
Yeah,
just
if you
gotta put
didn't
that
know,
in the
Nick
universe.
also produces the wrestling show and he does the social media on wrestling. So go and follow that account. It's Wrasslin, RASSLIN, and you can catch out Nick's true passion that he has
Yes,
there, which
yes.
is pro wrestling.
And he's
Make sure
really
you
good
check it
at
out.
it.
And
Yeah.
Brandon fucking Walker is the one who's the host on that show. So check it out. It's great.
Despite Brandon Walker, check it out, I would say.
True. Cons, what do you got?
yeah, just keep up with those Chaps was right, Cons was wrong comments. Doesn't even have to be about anything.
I love it. You
Just
said it
please-
wrong, even in your own brain when you're trying to talk
Wait,
shit.
shit, did I?
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
Oh man.
Yes, you did. That's a clip. That's a clip.
Ah,
Yeah, that's what happens.
God.
That's 5+ years of gaslight and Cons. That's the result.
This is my worst nightmare.
Mhm. Mhm.
Anyway, I had something. I'm flustered.
Kate, what do you
now. I'm
got?
Very flustered.
I wish I could go back in time and get invited to a DC orgy
Mm.
because
I mean, it's not too late.
younger me for the story. Maybe
yeah.
I would have just stood in the corner eating a canape or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a canapé, whatever you call them,
Mm-hmm.
like a canap.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish I would have gone to one because I know I could have secured an invite
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
back when I was toned.
Mm-hmm.
sure.
And I'm not trying to be a dick, but it's not that hard to be hot in DC. I'll say it.
Oh, true.
Okay. I could have crushed down there back in my 20s if I had been. Forget it. DC's lucky I wasn't stationed wherever Chaps was down there.
Quantico.
I would have crushed in Quantico. That's
Okay.
it for me.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
Ugh.
Quick question,
Mhm.
unrelated.
I would have slammed so much. Okay, sorry.
No, hey, live your truth. We appreciate that.
I feel like everyone else in this conversation has a Babadook vibe right now, and I don't appreciate it.
I
Sheesh.
just like that. I just like that. This is the way you ended. Your dad was on the show today.
Yeah,
That's like-
yeah.
Ooh, awkward. Ooh.
Fair enough.
Hmm.
Fair enough.
Quick question for you guys. This was a conversation that happened, I don't know, like a year ago or something, but it just recently popped up in my memory. Making your bed every day. Where do we ever talk about that? Where we stood on that? If that's helping or it's a good thing or it doesn't matter, it's a bad thing. What are you guys' thoughts?
I think it depends on where you're at and your mental state. I feel like
Okay.
if you are super depressed and you're like struggling, that's one of those things that can really help you out. Like in doing that, like one step, I think it's a good thing to do it, but it's also really hard. So I think it's easier said than done for a lot of folks.
Yeah, when I'm real depressed, I just don't do it. And then I feel like a shithead that I don't do it. But just me as a person, I usually tend to make it because I love climbing into a crisp bed. I mean, I fucking love it. Crispy sheets, but I usually do it right before I get into bed every night. My bed's a mess all day. And then right before bed, I tighten it up a little bit.
Yeah. I think people just assume anybody who was ever in the military just gets up at 5 a.m. every day, goes and works out, comes and does a bunch of chores before the sun comes up. And it's just not the case.
I'm up at 5 a.m. every day now, but
that's true.
That's true. Playing with Legos.
Okay.
I've been struggling because for the last like 45 minutes, all I can think about is Chuck Grassley getting a blowjob. Like that's it. Like just these old ass members of Congress just getting sucked on.
Oh,
Younger me would have also been curious who's working with what. And I've said this before. I would like to see the presidents lined up in order of Bernard.
I think because Congress been such an embarrassment that all of Congress should have to stand outside in formation, just butt ass naked, and let the American people throw tomatoes at them. Sound the retreat.